Welcome to Gardening Australia. It's great to be able to bring you today's show from a place that's growing our next generation of gardeners. I'm at TAFE New South Wales in Ryde, and I'll show you what I'm up to here a little later. Now, if you hadn't noticed, this week is National Science Week, and it's a great opportunity for us to explore a few plant-based science stories. Here's what we've got for you.
I'm discovering the wonders of Lord Howe Island. Millions of years of isolation has meant that the flora and fauna is completely amazing. And besides that, it is an absolute paradise.
I'm taking a close look at things that go wrong in the garden. If we understand what's going on, then we can deal with it.
I'll be meeting a pioneering scientist who's breeding a new generation of super sweet corn.
But first up, we're off to Tassie, where Tino's reminding us that winter doesn't have to be a colourless time in the garden.
Winter is beautiful, and although it's true it's not the most colourful or showy time of the year, I love it because there's so much going on, you just need to know where to look. Nothing explodes into colour in winter quite like the classic wattle, and with 1,000 different types, there's plenty to choose from for your garden. This is Acacia vestita, the hairy wattle. It has a bit of a spread, but if you've got the space, it's stunning. You can plant it individually, but it does make a great loose hedge. And have a look over here. This is Acacia baumannii. These inflorescences are almost weighty. If you can't grow Acacia cognata, if you're in a cooler climate, this is a good option. Gets to about a 3-metre high tree, has a nice little habit to it, and as you can see, gives you a beautiful flush in the late winter, early spring period. But while I'm here, have a look down at this little corroboree bush. It's absolutely gorgeous. These generally grow in New South Wales and Queensland, but because they're frost tolerant, they do really well in a climate like Tasmania, as long as we have good free drain soil. I suppose the only maintenance you really have to do on plants like this is once they finish flowering, deadhead them and pinch out the tips. Now that's just a glimpse of how many wattles there are. You can find one to suit any condition, whether it be coastal, alpine, wetlands, even arid regions. So there's got to be at least one to suit your garden. Now, our local wattles are not the only showy plants at this time of the year. Have a look at this cleanthus, the glory pea. Like the wattles, it is a legume. And although these flowers are truly remarkable, for me, the beauty in this plant is when the sun shines through these bipinnate leaves, creating a stunning dappled shade. Now, going from plants that you can see a mile off to a plant that you can smell a mile off. This is Daphne odora. And yes, odora means a bit stinky. It's a lovely little shrub, gets a bit under 1 metre high by a bit over 1 metre spread. It likes a slightly acidic, fertile, well-drained soil. And although on the tag it'll say part shade, I've grown these quite successfully in full sun. As far as feeding them goes, in a cool climate, you'll always get yellowing off in the cooler months. This is because the plant can't actually access the nutrient. So I give them a feed of liquid feed prior to flowering, and then a really good feed after flowering. The good thing about them is you prune them while they're in bloom. You can either go through and deadhead all the spent flowers, or what I like to do is go through, cut to a node point, take some of the open flowers inside and enjoy them for days. Daphne odora is a classic, but there are over 50 species of Daphne. And if you don't have room in the garden, they do well in pots. Just make sure that you keep the water up to them during the drier months. So there you go. There's no shortage of colour or interest in our coldest season. And the fact that these plants can do so well in teeth-chattering Tassie proves that no matter where you are in Australia, you can grow your own winter beauties too.
Have a look at this amazing billabong. It feels like I'm out in the bush, far from the city, but I'm actually at TAFE New South Wales in Ryde. It's one of the best places in the country to study plants and all things horticulture. And it's mainly because of places like this billabong. The billabong was created by landscape students and is now valuable habitat. It's surrounded by a rainforest garden, also planted by the students. Now, many of the trees have grown into giants. This is my kind of classroom. Today, I'm joining the students to get our hands dirty, doing a bit of construction work and bulking out the rainforest understory.
This morning's planting prac, we're going to put these understory ferns, native gingers and cordyline.
Horticulture teacher Jeremy Smith has got the greenery covered.
Yeah. Okay. You got those, Nick? Yeah. Great. Off we go. A fabricated landscape like this rainforest is, to be more true to type, it's going to have the multiple layers, and this is what's missing. Yep. And that's the idea about today's planting, is to complement the pathway with some Australian understory plantings and then create another mid-story within.
To give safe access through the garden, the landscape construction students are building a new boardwalk.
Keep an eye out for that this is a working site. Be mindful that you need to be aware what's in front of you and what's around you. Keep an eye out for your fellow students. Do we have
Teacher Andrew DeGilio looks for chances like this to get his students working on real-world projects.
We do a lot of the skills development in class and in the workshops. Then we usually combine it all into a group activity at the end of the unit, and it really just dots the I's and crosses the T's, and they really do come with a sense of accomplishment out of it. Okay, it all makes sense now. This is why we're doing it. They really do have, the knowledge and the skills that they get from here that they can take back to site for their employers.
I noticed that the footings here are sitting above the ground. What's the purpose of that?
We've repurposed old plant pots that were going to recycling, and we've created elevated blob footings, and that'll stop the root system underground being disturbed if we dig through it.
So we've got some ferns, some blacknum, some dudea, some cordylines and some native ginger, some alpinia. So what we're going to do is just put these out and scatter them through the landscape here. There's no particular planting plan, we're just going to fill in the gaps.
What are you planting here, Matt?
Putting in the cordyline stricta. It's a wicked understory plant. They tolerate the shade really well. Go up to about 5 metres out here.
One of the understory plants that the students are putting in today is this native fern, the rasp fern, or Dudea aspera. It grows only to about 30 centimetres and it spreads by rhizome, so it will make its way across the garden. And it's a really good alternative to the classic invasive fishbone fern. And finally, look at the new growth. It gets this beautiful orange colour. So what sort of timber are you using on the boardwalk?
We're actually using cypress pine, which is a softwood. The natural oils in the wood help preserve and prevent rot, so it's more sustainable, especially because we have a dam right here. And using a normal treated pine with chemicals, you run the risk of leaching into the waterways.
Has the course taught you new skills that you didn't have?
Definitely. The construction side's new to me. I've always been outdoors and active with any job I do, but this has been more productive in the sense that I can learn how to do things properly, and you build the garden with your structures, but ultimately it comes complete when you add all the plants into it.
The interesting thing is that I was a student at this TAFE and was involved in growing the plants, and as a student body, we put the plants in this space. The result now is we can see this closed canopy and some magnificent, semi-mature to mature examples of some really good Australian rainforest trees, not often seen in an urban landscape.
Does it surprise you to stand here close to 30 years later and see what those little seedlings have become?
Totally, it's exciting. I mean, that's what my life of horticulture is all about, is the passion, the knowledge, the seeking and the sharing with the students to create a really, an interesting learning environment. And here it is. This is one of my favourite learning spaces.
The next generation of green thumbs are using these outdoor classrooms to learn real-world skills in real-world landscapes. And judging by the students that I met here today, the gardens of Australia are in safe hands. Now, our next story is a special one. Jane recently visited a unique island whose isolation has made it a magnet for tourists and scientists keen to learn more about its flora and fauna.
Howe Island is a tiny dot in the vast Pacific Ocean, about 600 kilometres east of Port Macquarie. It was formed by a huge volcanic eruption that took place about 7 million years ago. It's part of New South Wales and was discovered the same year the colony of New South Wales was founded, 1788. Lord Howe Island is 11 kilometres long and 2 kilometres wide, and geologically speaking, it's eroding very rapidly. In 200,000 years from now, it's going to be just simply a reef, so we better take a quick look at it while we can. And how fantastic is that? There's around 350 residents on the island, and to make sure this special place isn't spoiled, only 400 visitors are allowed on the island at any one time. Mobile phone coverage is non-existent because that's what the locals want. And the few cars that you do see, well, there's a speed limit of 25 kilometres an hour. So bikes are the go. There's beautiful beaches and one special one where the fish throw caution to the wind and come right into shore to have a good feed. There's millions of them. Oh! There's also surfing, diving and rainforest walks, but tourists and scientists alike come here for the unique flora and fauna. Just for starters, there's 105 plant species that only occur naturally on Lord Howe. Since coming to Lord Howe in 1980, Ian Hutton has become an expert on its wildlife and written books about it. And he's also curator of the local museum.
Well, due to its isolation, Lord Howe Island is an outstanding example of the independent evolutionary processes, and Lord Howe Island is regarded as the Galapagos of the Western Pacific.
Ian showed me was the rainforest at Soldier Creek. I have never been in such an extraordinary forest as this one.
It's an amazing bit of forest, this pandanus forest. And although pandanus trees grow around other islands and continents in the world, this is perhaps the tallest one. And that's probably because the birds have taken the seeds into the rainforest. And if these pandanus want to survive, they have to get their leaves up to get the sunlight. So they're competing with all the other rainforest trees. And some of them, you can see they're 15 metres tall.
Oh,
extraordinary.
Easy. And then these amazing root systems, though.
So this tree has developed a system of what we call prop roots, where they support the tree. But as the tree grows and gets bigger and heavier, it needs more support. So it sends these prop roots down, they anchor, support the tree. To survive, these prop roots have got a very special water system. The leaves are designed to catch the water. It funnels down that trunk and down the prop root right to the end, where it keeps this growing tip moist so that survives and the root will grow.
That's an amazing sight to see, that little wood hen.
That's right, that's our endemic flightless bird. In the 1970s, they were thought to be only 20 in number on the whole island, that meant in the world.
Wow.
But 1980 began a rescue program. The feral pigs were removed, about 80 feral cats trapped, and then a captive breeding project run on the island raised 93 chicks, and they were released, and we have about 300 wood hens now. It's a great success story.
Ah! Ooh. Wowee. So what's this amazing tree?
Well, the local name of this is the scaly bark tree. It's got this very scaly bark on it, but it's a lily pilly. It's a syzygium, so it's a lily pilly family.
It's huge.
One of the biggest trees on the island, these scaly barks.
I love these buttress roots. They're
Fantastic things, yeah, and great support. That's thought to be the purpose of these buttress roots, to support this big weight of tree that's up there. And just up here, Jane, we can see two palms there. They are different. And the one on the left is the Howe belmoriana. The one on the right, the Howe fosteriana. And it is the fosteriana one that's the world-famous Kentia palm. That's the one that's sold around the world in the nursery trade.
We continued our exploration of Lord Howe in another rainforest area, Clear Place. Gee, that is some tree.
It's a great tree. This is one of our banyan trees.
Oh.
And these are a relative of the Moreton Bay fig.
Yeah.
The difference with our one is when these roots touch the ground, they thicken up and form another trunk. So you can see all these trunks. This one probably got 20 or 30 trunks.
That is just incredible.
Amazing trees.
How old would this one be?
I would say many hundreds of years, and perhaps some of the bigger ones could be thousands of years old. Apart from the banyan trees that we've seen, we've got other rainforest species.
That is some view, wow. So, Ian, it's amazing there's such lush vegetation on what looks like sort of just straight sand.
Well, you're right, Jane, and the reason is that for 8 months of the year, one of our seabirds comes back here and every night poos in the forest and fertilises the forest.
And what is the bird?
It's the flesh-footed shearwater. 6,000 pairs coming in, pooing in the forest.
Now, I've noticed just that funny little things like those.
It's pieces of plastic that the shearwaters have brought back to feed their chicks. This is floating around the ocean and the birds mistake it for food.
How do they mistake it for food?
Well, there's probably little barnacles and other marine organisms growing on it, and the birds get a sense of that through their smell and they believe it's food, so they pick it up and bring it back. And that's what they're feeding to the chicks.
So those chicks die?
Some of them do die if they get fed too much plastic. They physically can't get enough food in to develop properly, to fly off.
We've got to be aware of this, don't we?
We
Plastics
do.
in the ocean, big trouble.
And a lot of these items we can replace, like that's a balloon tie, and single-use items like a little soy sauce container, we don't really need to use single-use things, yeah. If something happened to the seabirds, then that fertiliser wouldn't be coming in and we may not have this forest here. It could be just scrub growing on the sand. Yeah, big roots, banyan roots going across the track.
And I've seen lots of fungi.
Yeah.
Little red dots and little white ones. Yes, it's beautiful. To finish the day, we took a look at the Providence petrel.
So that's a Providence petrel.
It was the Providence petrel. Wow. So they're seabirds and they only come to Lord Howe Island in the winter?
That's right. So in the summer they're up around the Sea of Japan, and in winter they're breeding at Lord Howe Island.
Yeah.
And this is the only breeding place in the world, Lord Howe Island.
In the world?
Extraordinary.
I just had one on my knee.
Yeah, there it is. Totally wild bird. They thought you were just a rock or a bit of a tree stump.
Yeah.
They're just part of nature.
Dear. Oh, another one's landed.
We have something like 30 or 40,000 pairs breeding here.
Well, that was a really great experience. It really touched me. Amazing.
Yeah, it is an amazing thing to have a wild animal come and just sit on your knee like that, isn't it?
Isn't it wonderful that Lord Howe exists as a haven for these petrels and for so many other creatures and plants? Seeing a few of them has been a real privilege. You don't get many days as good as this.
How do you get bees in your garden? Well, bees are really important for biodiversity and pollination, but you actually need to plan your garden to plant plants that attract them. It's easy to have bees in the warmer months if you have herbs like oregano, thyme, sage, even basil. But during the cooler weather, make sure that you have a rosemary blue lagoon and a French lavender. Both rosemary blue lagoon and French lavender flower for 6 months from autumn right through till spring.
Many gardeners have problems getting their cauliflowers to full maturity. Now, this plant's a little bit poorly due to the native hens, but it's still got a good head in there. The problem is frosty conditions can turn this head to sludge in just one night. But all you need to protect them is a bit of twine and the top leaves. You just pull them together around the curd and then twist the twine around. And as the weather warms up during the day, you can remove it, exposing it to that warm sunlight. And I guarantee you, your curds will be well on their way.
What is the best way to use fallen leaves? Well, of course, you can make great compost from them. Run them over with the mower, mix them up with anything you've got, and you'll get great stuff out of it. You can also use them as a mulch. You just put them on the garden bed, not too thick, and just keep them clear of small plants. But if, like me, you are a compulsive seed sower, a great way to use them is to make your own leaf mould. You just roll them up. I use an old tarp, moisten them down, as many as you can get, and then let them rot for 10 or 12 months. And at the other end, you get the perfect thing to start making your own potting mix.
Here in the TAFE kitchen garden, they've just planted 180 bulbs of garlic. Now, any gardener will tell you that growing tasty fruit and veg is a real art form. But Jerry's catching up with an expert who says that it's actually a science.
Take a look at this crop of teosinte growing in my garden. This is an ancient form of corn. I grow it because it's a bit of a nerdy plant. It's extinct in the wild, and without people growing it in their gardens, it would cease to exist. You can just about see the resemblance with corn. The leaves are similar. It has really primitive cobs. The seed just drop off with teosinte, so getting food from this plant was quite hard work. Corn is probably the greatest example of how farmers and gardeners have shaped a crop to suit our needs. Today, I'm heading off to meet a dedicated plant breeder who's pushing the boundaries of corn even further. Dr. Tim O'Hare's office is the Gatton Research Station not far from Brisbane. Currently, he's trialling new varieties using traditional plant breeding methods and applying modern technology to confirm his success. And what are the objectives with this new variety of corn?
The purple pigment's called anthocyanin, and it actually has some health benefits such as reducing blood pressure and those sorts of things. And normal corn, which is yellow or even white, doesn't have any of this phytonutrient present in it. And our aim was to get that good purple pigment into normal corn.
So how do you go about making the hybrid?
Well, I suppose the simplest way to start is you need 2 stable parents. And in this case, we've got a white super sweet variety. So this is the sort of corn you'll buy in the supermarket. On the other hand, you've got something you don't see as often. This is a Peruvian purple maize. So the next step is you grow seeds from each of these particular plants, and then you have to do a controlled cross.
OK, so the bees can't do what they would normally do in a garden and just move from one plant to another. You restrict that and control how pollen is transferred from one to another.
Very much so, otherwise you don't know really the end result, what you're getting.
Well, there are lots of bags here. What's been going on?
Well, this is all part of the pollination process and controlled pollination. And basically what we have here is the male part at the top of the plant, and we have the female at the bottom of the plant. We've got to transfer pollen, and if we're doing a cross-pollination, we need the pollen from, say, this plant here, over here, and we need to move it over and put it onto these silks down here. And then we put a bag over the top of them, we staple it, and we write down the date that it was done so that we know the age of the cob.
Next, Dr. Tim harvested the offspring of the crosses and took them to the lab to study. So what did you observe from the first crosses?
Interestingly enough, the first cross, you observed absolutely nothing. You just harvest the cob that you pollinated. And the reason behind that is because it's all happening in the embryo inside the kernel. So we get them back to the lab, we let them dry out, and then we replant them again. And then we pollinate those plants. And that's where we get the interesting things happening.
And what was the breakthrough?
Well, the breakthrough was getting a super sweet that was purple. Well, Jerry, what we've got here is a bit of a range of some of our successes that we've had with generating the super sweet purple corn. And you can see if you look at these ones here, these are the purples and these are the whites over here. So these are the ones we didn't want.
And they were 97% of what you were getting. These are just 3% of the whole crop.
That's right. So if you can imagine a whole field, 97% of it is white corn, throw away.
I have to say, I do like this one. This is an interesting bicolour, isn't it?
Yeah, the bicolour is something that's really interesting. It's what happens is that when they're very immature, they sort of start like over here, where they've just got a little pinprick of purple colour. And then gradually, as they get more mature, eventually it will cover the entire kernel.
Colour-wise, a lot of variation. Is there a lot of variation in flavour?
Flavour's a really interesting one because you know, people tend to think, oh, well, it's a new corn. What does it taste like? Does it taste like sweet corn? And the answer is yes, it basically tastes like sweet corn. But what's really interesting about these, and quite unexpected, was that there was like a raspberry overtone, which I was very surprised. I actually said, are you sure? And they said, yes, definitely, especially when it's cooked, and that slight raspberry overtone.
So I guess you must have had some fun doing this.
Yeah, you could say that. It was a lot of fun because when you go out in the field and you see these cobs on the side of plants, they're wrapped up in leaves and it's like opening Christmas presents.
What we've seen here is the pioneering research by Dr. Tim O'Hare. As home gardeners, we can't replicate the science in our back gardens, but what we can do is we can recognise our best plants. And by saving our seed from those best plants year after year, we can adapt them better to suit local soils and conditions. In essence, we can become our own backyard plant breeders. And in doing that, we can become better gardeners.
Still to come on Gardening Australia, Millie will be showing you how to fill your veggie bed in the tricky time between seasons. Sophie plays Sherlock Holmes in her own garden to uncover a few garden mysteries. And guest presenter Rebecca Sullivan will be showing you how things from your garden can be used to keep the moths away. Dr. Tien Hun came to Australia with her family as a refugee from Vietnam. She was recently named as one of 30 female superstars by Science and Technology Australia. Dr. Hun's work is revealing some fascinating insights into the secrets of plants.
My name is Dr. Tien Hun and I'm a plant biologist here at RMIT University. Today we're at Bundoora West Campus where we have our research labs and gardens. Well, I came to Australia when I was about 6 years old and I came from Vietnam as a refugee. I came with my mother and my younger sister. I was interested in plants from way back early when I was a young girl. I don't remember much of it, but my mother used to tell me stories of me getting lost and no one knew where I was for hours, and they'd find me lost in a park with flowers in my hair, and she knew back then that I was really passionate and loved plants. The main focus of my research is medicinal plants and environmental upcycling so that we can focus on sustainability and conservation. And drawing onto my background from Vietnam, I started to incorporate a lot of the plants from tropical Asia into my research. Well, this is one of my favourite plants and we've got a lot of research on it. It's called Momordica cochinchinensis, which is commonly known in Vietnam as red gack. It belongs in the cucumber family, so it doesn't really like the cold, and that's why we're seeing quite a lot of shriveled up leaves as we come into winter. This plant produces a fruit that contains the highest levels of carotenoids than any other known fruit on Earth. And carotenoids, the two main ones that it produces is lycopene and beta-carotene. Now, lycopene is the red in tomatoes, and beta-carotene is the orange in carrots. And it contains more than 200 times the lycopene compared to tomatoes and more than 50 times more beta-carotene than carrots. So it's highly nutritious and it's also very bioactive. So this is the red gack seed, and it's actually really high in anti-cancer properties. And we found that out by doing some cell culture tests on melanoma and carcinoma cells. And what we found was that it was about 95 to 98% effective on these cancer cells. The flesh is actually also high in anti-cancer properties, but it also contains the nutrients. And if you can look at this, and I'll grab some, it's very red in colour, which is from the carotenoids. Traditional medicine has been around for centuries, and they're still around today for a reason. With the technology that we have these days, we can actually show why they work. So this is Momordica charantia, which is a close relative of our red gack. It's also known as bitter melon. Now, we eat this a lot in Asian cuisine. I like mine fried with eggs and bacon. It's actually really good as an anti-diabetic plant, and there's been quite a lot of studies that have shown that as well. So I've got research students looking at this in terms of how we can actually get out the bioactive compounds to actually reduce blood sugar levels and find out how it does it and why it does it. So my research isn't just pure research, it's also applications, how we can actually get the best of the research that we find and actually incorporate into everyday life. So here in the facilities, we have a tissue culture lab where we produce millions of plants of the one clone from a single material. And what that's really important for is horticulture, because we can produce lots of plants in a very short amount of time. With tissue culture, you can naturally remove viruses, but you can't do it any other way. You can also breed important plants and not have them contaminated by environment or nutritional factors or deficiencies. And especially as we have climate change impacting on a lot of our plants, tissue culture is a very controlled environment where we can actually make sure that the plants are surviving and doing what they need to. One of the things that I'm passionate about is actually incorporating Australia with our neighbours, and specifically Asia, because that's where I come from. That's my birthplace. And I consider Australia as my adopted home, so I'd like to start having a better connection and ties with our neighbours. So what I do is a lot of outreach programs into Asia, and I bring all the skills and technology that we have in Australia and bring it back to the people who are the primary producers. And specifically with things like red gag, where the farmers are actually growing it, I want to actually help them to grow better varieties so that we can benefit from the end products. We know so little about plants, and I hope to inspire others to carry on the work that I started so we find out more about the amazing world of plants.
There really is so much more to learn about our diverse and magical plant world. And thanks to inspirational scientists like Tien, our knowledge is growing every day. Now, it may be a bit early to plant your spring veggies, and your winter veggies could be looking a bit tired. So what do you do to fill the gap? Here's Millie with a few ideas.
We all know that spring is coming, but for those of us gardening in a cool climate, well, we can't even taste it yet. I mean, I've sowed the seeds of my summer crops, but most of my winter things are finished. And in a gardener's terms, these are lean times. Sometimes early spring is known as the hungry gap. If you planted garlic in autumn, it's not going to be ready to harvest the bulbs until midsummer, but there is a way to get garlic flavour quickly. If you've got them shooting in the kitchen, the little bulbs like this, you can actually plant them. And then you can harvest these gorgeous little garlic shoots right the way through spring. Just break the bulbs apart and plant them pointy side up. You don't have to be fussy about spacing because it's not the bulbs we want. This crop is just for the leaves. And as they shoot away, you can continuously harvest those tips right through the growing season, and they're yum. And of course, being onions, they like a sweet soil, so I'm just dusting on a little bit of lime. Microgreens are a really great way to get a fast harvest. And you can use up all your old, out-of-date seeds. I've got a mixture here of leafy greens. I've got some mizuna, some silver beet, a bunch of lettuce, a couple of different types of kale, and some mustard out of the kitchen cupboard. I think it'll come up thick and fast. Prepare a seed bed. About 1 metre square is good, but really, you can use this method to fill any little gaps. Just rough up the soil, add a bit of compost or manure, and rake flat. Sprinkle the fine seed on the surface of the soil and sieve a little compost over the top. Water in and keep consistently moist while they are little. The great thing about using old seed this way is you really never know what's going to grow the most strongly. But whatever comes up, I'm going to harvest it quickly, within about 4 to 6 weeks, which means it'll be out of the ground, into the kitchen, before it's time to put in my spring cucumber crop. Rhubarb has got to be one of the very best home garden crops. It's tough as old boots, it'll grow almost anywhere, and of course you can harvest those really delicious stems. I grow a couple of varieties, one given to me by a mate. It's almost evergreen. It keeps those gorgeous thin red stems throughout most of the year for continuous harvests. And this is the other one. It's a more traditional deciduous type. It's completely dormant now it's in winter. And of course, all rhubarb is delicious, but you can get these deciduous forms to produce super tasty stems early in spring by forcing them. And that's why I'm sitting on a terracotta pot. Rhubarb are hungry plants, so top dress with compost and aged manure. Then I'm going to cover the crown with this terracotta pot. By shading this plant completely, it means the stems are actually going to reach for the light. They become pale and tender and quite long. In the kitchen, they call it blanching, but in the garden, we call it etiolation, when the cells actually stretch. I'm going to harvest those stems when they're about 30 centimetres long, and then mid-spring, I'll pull that pot off, let it start to photosynthesise again like a normal plant, and it'll grow on for summer. When I lived in a relatively frost-free climate in the city, I used to sow my broad beans in autumn. These are actually from my last rental garden. And they would grow all through the winter months. I could pick flowers and leaves to eat before they set their pods in late spring. So this year I want to try them as a spring-sown crop. Essentially, they're going into warmer soil, so they should take off and catch up to anything that would have sat there since autumn anyway. Of course, I can't sow these yet because they're always best soaked in some water, a couple of hours at least, and overnight if you can. Broad beans are tall and lanky, and spring, well, it's windy, so I'm rigging up a small bamboo frame to offer them some support. There really isn't much to planting them. You just poke a hole in, a couple of knuckles deep, and shove them in. By planting all the time, I can also harvest all the time, which means I always have some fast food on the go. Keeping homegrown food on the table every single day can be challenging. But with a little planning and plenty of planting, it can be done. Cheers. Yum.
Now I can hear that the geese are on the move. And the guinea fowl are at large and mean business. That means it's time to go to the Adelaide Hills, where Sophie's being a super sleuth.
To get to the bottom of problems in your garden and find a solution, it helps to be a bit of a detective. You don't actually have to get out your magnifying glass, but you do need to be observant and gather all the facts that you can. To be a good garden detective, you need to be prepared to work at all hours. I couldn't work out what was eating my liriope here, so I came out at night to find snails of all sorts having a field day. The normal garden snail and also these little snails that are a problem in rural areas. Now, I am encouraging lizards to clean them up, but I haven't got enough yet, so I dealt with them with an iron-based snail pellet. This Russian olive is not happy. It's lost its leaves too early. Now, it's a deciduous tree, but if I scratch the bark of this branch, it's brown underneath, which means that branch has died. If I scratch here or on the main trunk, it's actually green, so the tree's still alive. But what caused this problem? Well, I suspect it's a lack of water. The reason why is the Russian olive just up ahead is looking good. I happen to know, though, that the duck pond is on the inside of the fence, just adjacent to it, and it's empty daily, so it's getting water. The Russian olive across the driveway is also looking good, but that's near the veggie patch, so there's probably some seepage. But this Russian olive has had no supplementary water and it's not happy. It's a deciduous tree. It's going to come back into leaf in spring because it's still alive, but I'll make sure that next year I give it a drink occasionally if we have a long dry spell. Now here's another tree that's obviously not happy. This golden rain tree has also lost its leaves really early. When I scratch it, it's still green, so I think it'll be okay. But what's actually gone on? Well, I happen to know here that this tree got wet feet. Why would it get wet feet? Well, I replaced this lawn in the middle of summer on a 40-degree week, and I panicked that I didn't want the lawn to die. So I watered it a lot, and obviously this tree didn't like getting overwatered. At the time, I dug down here and I found that the soil adjacent was really sodden. Now when I dig down, it's actually quite nice. So I've turned the water down and that's moist as it should be. I think after a good dose of seaweed-based plant tonic, this tree will be fine in spring, but it serves myself right for overwatering. It's just as bad as underwatering. This crepe myrtle has got crisp leaf edges, which looks like it's sunburnt. But in this case, I happen to know that it's saltburn. Here at our property, we don't have access to mains water, so we use salty bore water, and it does show up on the leaves of deciduous plants. Our weather pattern is such that the good winter rains we get flushes the salt through the soil profile, so the new spring growth is always fine, and you can actually see that the new growth is not showing any signs of saltburn. This is a dais or pom-pom tree, but what's this pale growth with darker green veins telling me? These are classic signs of lime-induced chlorosis, caused when the iron in the soil isn't available to the plant. That often happens if you have alkaline soils. When this old stone building was being renovated, the builder used to wash his wheelbarrow right here by the front door. And the challenge with that is the lime in the mortar has probably affected the pH of the soil. So I'm going to do a pH test to see where it's at. You can get a pH test kit from your local nursery or garden centre. Now, if 7 on the chart is neutral and that colour green, you can see that this is about 8.5 to 9, which is quite alkaline. Now, what to do about it? I take a two-pronged approach to correcting this. The first is to acidify the soil by decreasing the pH with agricultural sulphur. The second is to apply iron sulphate to correct the iron deficiency. You need to repeat this process and monitor its effectiveness by testing the soil. Now, here's another problem. There's a big hole in this beautiful Salvia Anthony Parker. What's the problem? I reckon this is probably the cause. When you've got a tribe of 5 and they're outdoor kids kicking a ball, invariably, "It wasn't me" causes a lot of damage in my garden. Anyway, if you're observant and play the garden detective, you'll be well on your way to solving many of your gardening problems.
Sweet potatoes. What a cracker of a crop. Productive, they taste delicious, and once established, pretty hardy. Now, what's the best way to propagate them? Well, this tuber is giving us an example. It's sprouting, it wants to grow. And you can place this out and it will grow and eventually set tubers, but it'll take some time because these shoots need to establish runners, then roots, which will then form tubers. There's a quicker way to go about it. And that's to use these established runners that I've cut from someone else's plant. Now, these are what run across the ground. And then look at that. That's where roots develop, grow into the soil, and then in certain spots, tubers will form. So you can do something as simple as just cutting these into pencil-sized lengths. We'll pull off the leaves if you want, just like that. And in warm areas, you can insert those into well-prepared, fertile soil, and they'll grow. And normally, 3 to 4 months, you'll start to get tubers. But where it gets cool over winter, like it does here in Perth, plants out in the garden typically slow down and almost go semi-dormant. So what I like to do is plant them into pots and grow them in a warm spot. So they grow over winter still, albeit slowly, and they're ready for planting out into the garden in mid-spring. That way you get an early start to the season and you'll get the most productive crop. After a good watering in, head straight into the nursery, where they'll establish into strong young plants over the winter months in the warmth. Now, if you don't have a hothouse like this, don't worry. You can also establish sweet potato cuttings during winter by potting them up and placing them on a warm, sunny windowsill.
Well, we're down to the last of our guest presenter, Rebecca Sullivan's stories today. And this one will take you back to your nana's place.
Insects have their place in our gardens, of course, but some are more welcome than others, especially when it comes to my wardrobe. So I'm going to take some of these plants and turn them into a sweet-smelling natural moth repellent, just like my grandma used to make. Than opening up your wardrobe, pulling out your favourite jumper and seeing a hole in it. Yes, those moths, they love to eat our jumpers. I used to rummage through my nan's drawers and always find these little sachets of things, and they always smelt beautiful, mainly of lavender. And I started thinking about that, and that was such a good old granny skill. She used to make those herself, just foraging through the garden, putting it in a bit of cheesecloth or an old stocking in her day, and it would keep the moths away. It really worked. So the things that I've picked from the garden today are a few things that I know the moths hate. Fortunately for us, they're things that we love the smell of. I've also added a few beautiful things that just smell good anyway. So I've got a combination of fresh things and dried things, some things from the garden and some things that are from my pantry. So I've got some mint, some peppermint. This is just actually old peppermint tea, so it's been dried out already, obviously. I've got some lavender. I have some citrus peel here. I also have some dried lavender, some rosemary, and a cinnamon stick. So get yourself some cheesecloth and cut off a square, and then you just start building. I'm going to use a combination of a few of my favourite things. You can play around with whatever you like. I'm going to start with some peppermint. Use loose leaf or dry out your own from your garden. And then from there, I'm going to add some dried lavender. Once again, you can just dry this out from your garden. I'm going to use a bit of a cinnamon stick. I'm just going to break this up. Put that in there. And then this is just because it's one of my favourite smells in the world. I'm just going to add a few dried rose petals too. Now, one thing you can do at this point if you like is take a cotton pad or a cotton wool ball, and if you've got essential oils, you can actually add a few drops to that, squish it up and put it in your little sachet. If you don't have essential oils, that's totally fine. You can just leave this step out. Now, make it into a little triangle, fold in all the edges, use a bit of twine or string or a bit of ribbon, whatever you've got, tie it up, and you've got yourself a little linen drawer refresher, moth repeller, a little ode to your granny.
An ode to your granny indeed. Well, Beck, thanks so much for sharing your stories with us. It's been an absolute treat to be reminded of some of those old-fashioned skills. And I reckon it would make a great project for the weekend. While we're on it, here's some other ideas to get you out into your garden. In cool, temperate areas, it's important to protect your frost-sensitive plants from this very cold month. So put some hessian or horticultural fleece over your tender babies. And now's the time to finish off pruning your roses, ready for spring growth. If you're growing brassicas, such as Brussels sprouts, collies and cabbages, give them a top dress with some blood and bone. And keep your dogs away till the smell settles, in case they decide to dig up all your hard work. In warm temperate areas, feed your fruit trees some pelletised manure. And in the orchard and veggie patch, you can pull back some mulch to help the soil warm up. In the garden, prune back your poinsettias after they flower, but make sure you wear long sleeves, gloves and goggles so you don't accidentally get their white sap on your skin or in your eyes, where it can cause irritation. In subtropical areas, plant dahlia tubers for magnificent summer blooms and get stuck into the weeding now before they start setting seed. If you've got hibiscus growing, prune them by about 1/3 to encourage new growth. That'll provide flowering wood for next summer and autumn's blooms. In the tropics, it's time to prune your copperleaf or beefsteak plants. These are in the same family as poinsettias, so once again, put on that personal protective equipment to guard yourself from the sap. It's also a good time to fertilise your rose plants with rose fertiliser. And if you have ornamental grasses and want to get more, divide them up and hand them around to friends or fill empty spots in the garden. In arid zones, it's time to sow tomatillos and Cape gooseberries. The fruit of these guys looks like cherry tomatoes with a papery husk around them. The tomatillos taste a bit like plums, and the gooseberries have a tartness to them, but both are delicious. If you have Banksias growing and want to encourage them to stay thick and bushy, trim off the spent blooms as they finish flowering, but don't go too hard because they flower on older wood. And if you're wanting to fill up gaps in the garden, now's the time to take tip cuttings from native daisies, such as brachyscomes and paper daisies. Once they've rooted, plant them out for splashes of spring colour. You can find all these details on our website, along with heaps of other gardening ideas.